Check this out. Remote start. Isn't that cool with the headlights? Alright guys, so we gotta talk about it. So I just had some news come across my channel. Someone told me that they're seeing Jeep Grand Cherokee L's delivered in the Overland, Summit, and Summit Reserve to the dealerships without air suspension. Now, I didn't think that was a big deal because I figured, oh, maybe they don't have the parts and maybe they're just gonna, knock off maybe $1,500, $2,000 off the price. Well, I looked up online, I saw a incoming Grand Cherokee L coming in and it had a credit of $750. Really? Come on, Jeep. $750? Really? Now, this is good and bad news, so I'm going to give you the pro and con of this thing because I feel as though people are already asking me about it and I figure I'd just make a video about it too. So let's get into it. Really quickly, be sure to subscribe to JB Reviews and make sure you have those bell notifications on, and be sure to check out my other channel, Attainable Exotic Cars. Now let's get back to the video. Now, if you're not familiar, Jeep just recently unveiled this Grand Cherokee L, which has a third row seat. I think it looks amazing, and it slots just under the Wagoneer in terms of size. It has the availability for the 5.7, which this one does have. I love the red velvet. This is a beautiful color on the Overland. These wheels, the black accents, stunning. But this truck that we're looking at does have air suspension. I personally would prefer to have this system because I would probably tow with this thing if I had one. And what that means is when you have the air suspension, it allows the rear, when you start adding hitch weight to the back of that hitch, it'll start to squat in the back, right? The air suspension will actually lift it back up. So for me, that system for $750 credit, not worth it to me. I would just say, well, give me one that has air suspension for $750. I mean, it's not worth it. And the other benefit is, if you're on the highway cruising, it can automatically adjust. It can go into aero mode. It can ride in normal mode. If you're going through deep snow, you can raise it up. I mean, there's a lot of good functions to this system. So in my opinion, I would want it on my Grand Cherokee L. But now I have to play devil's advocate because we obviously know there's always two sides to something, right? Now, the Grand Cherokee L, whether you get it in an Overland up to a Reserve, comes standard with a V6 engine. That V6 is going to be included in the starting price of the Grand Cherokee L. The one you're looking at right now has an optional 5.7 liter V8, which is right here. So if you look at the price of that, it's $3,295. Now, you obviously know that if you were to go to a Chrysler store and say, hey, I want to buy a 5.7 liter V8 for $3,295, you can't do that. And the reason why is they give you a credit for that V6 powertrain in order to offset that 5.7 liter V8. So in essence, that's kind of what they did with this air suspension. Manufacturers basically buy these parts, like these headlights, these tow hooks on the front right down here, these mirrors, the head unit inside of here, these leather seats, everything is outsourced to another company. So for example, Pioneer might manufacture this head unit. This is a 10.1 inch head unit. They might be the manufacturers of this thing. And what happens is, because Stellantis, which is Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram now, because they're going to buy 100,000 of those, they're able to buy these probably less than what you can get wholesale, right? So they're going to probably buy 100,000 screens for these Grand Cherokee L's. And they might use the same screen inside of another Dodge, Jeep, or Ram, or Chrysler. So they're able to get these parts a lot cheaper. Therefore, when you think about the air suspension, even though it's only a $750 credit, if you were to go and buy a Grand Cherokee L Altitude, which is not available with air suspension, if you were to go to this dealership and say, hey, I would like to get the air suspension for $750, they're going to laugh at you. That system probably costs $3,000 to $5,000. And keep in mind, there's a lot of pieces that would have to be replaced in order for this system to work in a Grand Cherokee L that did not have this as standard equipment like this, basically. So even though I understand that this system's a lot more money, I think that Jeep should take a little bit more of a loss on the Grand Cherokee L because they weren't able to keep up with the demand. Because they have so many Grand Cherokees going out and being sold, they're having to keep up with the supply of them. So their natural, decision was to basically say, how about we just not put air suspension in some of the Overlands, Summits, and the Summit Reserves. And that's kind of my point is, I think it makes sense either way, because even though it's not that much money up front, I do understand why it's only $750, because for them to manufacture a Grand Cherokee L with the air suspension is probably about $750, maybe a little bit more. Maybe it's probably $1,500 bucks, but they don't want to give you all the money back because they're being greedy. But as I mentioned earlier in this video, I prefer to have a Grand Cherokee L with the air suspension because I would use this system for the most part for towing, maybe for going off-road a little bit, because sometimes we go look at properties and I do like to take cars down beaten paths sometimes. But the other part of it is $750 is not enough for me to get rid of the system. But the people who would probably like this change should come out right now and buy these Grand Cherokee L's Overland and up before they're gone. Because you get them $750 cheaper, and it's one less issue you'll have on this Grand Cherokee L. This being the first model year, you can almost guarantee you're gonna have issues with this truck. I mean, it's just a known fact. I mean, I've already noticed a few issues, and if you care for me to do a video on it, leave a comment down below and I will. Now, you may also be interested in a Grand Cherokee L without the air suspension if you plan on modifying the suspension. I'm pretty sure at some point people are going to start to modify these things, and if you wanted a higher trim level without the air suspension, this is your opportunity to get one, because I wouldn't personally mess with this air suspension just because while I'm under warranty, I wouldn't want them to void something. So if you have the coils and decide you want to lift it, you don't have to worry about voiding the warranty on this air suspension, because like I said, even though it's a $750 credit, it probably costs $3,000 to $5,000 to replace on this Grand Cherokee L. And if you did decide you want to lift this is kind of what it would look like. This is in this highest setting in off-road 2. I will go over that with you at the end of this video, but I think this is a perfect value for people, especially if you're planning on selling it in the future. It's just one less thing for you to have to talk about that could have an issue. I mean, hey, if you're selling your Grand Cherokee L privately, someone might be more interested in it if it was a higher trim level without the air suspension, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, like I said, I know that it's kind of weird that they did that, but I think that this is still a good option for a lot of people. And not having the air suspension is not the end of the world personally, but like I do like the idea of it because I do like the way the system works. Especially when you have it in the entry and exit position, you can actually set it up through the screen where you could basically, when you turn off the Grand Cherokee, it'll just drop all the way down for you. If you live in a area where you have like a low garage, you can lower it down because of that too, and that way you don't have to worry about potentially damaging the roof. So I like the idea of having this air suspension for those reasons and for the towing benefits too. And on that note, let me just show you the system really quickly, and then that'll effectively end this video. Isn't that cool? All right, so I'm already there. So as I said, I'm in off-road 2, maximum ground clearance. I'm gonna lower it down. I will time lapse this too for you. Now we're in off-road 1, ride height achieved. And it says increased ground clearance. So off-road 2 is maximum ground clearance. Normal ride height. They say that it's suitable for most situations. Aerodynamic. And then this is improved aerodynamics, so if you're on the highway going at higher speeds, it'll help with handling. And then the last one is the one I mentioned. And this is the entry and exit. And then lowered for, like I just mentioned. So let's go and take a look at it on the outside so you can see what it looks like. So there it is. I'll show you some comparisons of what it looks like. But yeah, in this setting it looks really cool when it's just low to the ground. Looks like a lowrider. But again, I hope this was helpful, guys. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and be sure to leave a comment below of what you liked about this video, and I will see you guys soon.